6 months.
Letby, why are we still so close to nowhere? Laying it down for the experts. All links to research material can be found in the written document in 6 months. Written by Sarah Hawkins, researcher, campaigner, and freelance investigative journalist. Professor Dr. Richard Gill, Emeritus Professor of Mathematical Statistics at the University of Leiden. This paper focuses on the twins and multiples in the indictment to see whether or not we could understand a little bit more about their presentation when they were born. Our heartfelt sympathy extends to the parents of all the babies. This paper serves to help everyone to better understand what may have led to their deaths or collapses. That does not include maleficence by Lucy Letby or any other nurse charged with their care. Sarah Hawkins. Years of work and research into the area of maternity specialising in twins and multiples has introduced her to the sometimes unsavoury area of medical studies, particularly those involving twins. The antenatal care of vulnerable infants has led her to compile a substantial body of evidence. Sarah campaigns for improvements in this area and also against the use of twins for research purposes unless it directly benefits them. Sarah has supported hundreds of families during the perinatal window and advocated for them after they have suffered a loss to understand what happened and to address any failings in clinical care in their pregnancy and neonatal care. This work necessitates a direct address to the experts and institutions involved from a lay expert's standpoint. Committed to uncovering facts, a persistent question emerges. Despite established ethical guidelines and layers of institutional oversight, why does achieving genuine transparency and clear accountability feel so profoundly difficult? This investigation is not undertaken lightly. For some, including Lucy Letby, a woman whose very freedom currently hangs in the balance, the unearthing of untarnished truth from within these intricate networks could prove absolutely critical. In December 2024, having cause to reflect upon research which included work undertaken for abstracts accepted for poster presentation at 2 World Congresses, she saw things in a new light and saw a possible link to the Letby case she could not ignore. Richard Gill lives in the Netherlands and born in the UK, living and working for more than 50 years in the Netherlands and has both Dutch and British nationalities. In recent years, he has worked intensively in forensic science and before that, mainly in medical statistics. He is a member of the Royal Dutch Academy of Sciences and has served as president of the Dutch Statistical Society. He has been involved numerous times in scientific integrity investigations into the work of influential academics whose questionable research practices in order to fake scientific findings by manipulation and sometimes faking of statistical data, as well as advising courts, police, prosecution, and defense teams in many high-profile criminal cases. In terms of the twins and multiples in the indictment, we found some statistical anomalies that deserve exploring further. This paper serves as an introduction to our findings and ongoing work. We will explain why this anomaly in numbers could not possibly be because of Lucy Letby, and there can only be an alternative cause. However, our findings will be new to the reader, and now listener, who has had a keen interest in the case. First, we want to explore some disciplines to give context going forward. Twin studies versus twin research. It's important to make a couple of distinctions for the purposes of understanding these terms. Twin studies refer to research that uses twins to understand concepts like nature versus nurture and genetic predisposition. These studies use the twin method, a concept pioneered by the 19th century scientist Francis Galton. While these studies have evolved in sophistication, they are based on the now known scientific premise that identical twins share nearly 100% of their DNA. By observing identical twins or multiples who have experienced different environments or lifestyles, researchers can compare them to gain a better understanding of the various factors that affect how a person ages, thinks, and behaves, as well as how their character develops psychosociologically. Twin research is a term used by researchers and clinicians that refers to research on twin-related complications for the purpose of benefiting twins. Historical precedents for concern regarding twin studies. This field of research inspired pseudoscientific experiments, including those led by Nazi physician Joseph Mengele. This ethically questionable legacy continued with Dr. Peter Neubauer's twin study, 1960s to the 1980s. Identical twins were deliberately separated at birth to study nature versus nurture. The research records were sealed until 2065. Dr. John Money's research, 1960s onwards, his theories on gender identity based on flawed experiments like the John Joan case led to irreversible surgeries and great suffering. He, Jiang Q's gene-edited babies in 2018. This Chinese scientist secretly edited the genes of human embryos to create HIV resistance, resulting in the birth of twins and a third child, with most of the data remaining secret. These cases highlight a critical issue. Crucial information about human research can remain hidden for decades. This demonstrates the difficulties faced by twins and multiples and the reluctance, fear, and secrecy when seeking to discover information held by people and/or entities. Epidemiology, epigenetics, and maternity. Within maternity, there is a medical discipline called fetal medicine, which explores genetics to discover life-limiting abnormalities and conditions incompatible with life. This area of medicine plays a crucial role in high-risk pregnancies, such as those involving twins, multiples, assisted fertility, and IVF. The discovery of IVF created an urgent need to safeguard the health of both healthy pregnancies and fetuses. When an embryo is created outside the body, its epigenome, the very system that tells genes what to do, undergoes a massive reprogramming. This process carries a real risk of certain imprinting disorders in IVF. The greater chance of a multiple pregnancy has also made this a powerful magnet for epigeneticists. They view it as a high-stakes lab for studying how the environment impacts gene function, making their expertise essential for improving outcomes. It just so happens that epigenetics is also where twin studies are of great interest, as epigeneticists' interest extends beyond pregnancy and into life. This intersection is where epidemiology becomes a crucial partner. While epidemiology identifies the distribution and determinates of health outcomes within populations, for example, a higher incidence of certain conditions in IVF pregnancies, epigenetics provides the molecular level explanation of how these environmental factors and lifestyle choices directly influence gene function. This collaboration, known as epigenetic epidemiology, helps to bridge the gap between population level observations and the underlying biological mechanisms. The Lucy Letby case. Despite much information being unobtainable, we have been able to discern that there are at least 11 twins and multiples among the 17 babies in the indictment, which is almost 2/3 of these 11. 4 babies died neonatally. There were an additional 4 co-twins, co-multiples, have or had a twin sibling, related to the babies in the indictment, with 2 reported to have died in utero after 24 weeks, and this makes the perinatal mortality of the multiples to be 6. Perinatal mortality means any fetal demise after 24 weeks and neonatal deaths. We will consider the cohort to include the babies named in the indictment, along with their related co-twin or multiple birth siblings not included. 17 on the indictment plus the 4 relatives equals 21 of these. 15, 71.4%, were twins or multiples, while 6, 28.6%, were singletons. The overall perinatal mortality within the group is 6 deaths, presenting a 22.2% of the total cohort. Among the twins and multiples, the perinatal mortality rate is higher, while among the singletons, 2 of the 6 infants died, representing a mortality rate of 9.5%, which is 2 out of 21. When we compare twins and multiples to singletons, we find there were 5 times as many deaths among them. Perinatal mortality accounts for 3/5 of the total deaths in the twins and multiples group, making the deaths 3 times higher than that of the singletons. Fortunately for us, there was a national audit published for the years 2015 and 2016 called The NHS Maternity Care for Women with Multiple Births and Their Babies, a study on feasibility of assessing care using data from births between the 1st of April 2015 and the 31st of March 2017 in England, Wales and Scotland by the National Perinatal Epidemiology Unit, the NPEU. Though this is called a national audit, it only involved 30 units, selected by the researchers who published it. The Countess of Chester did not participate in this audit. It looked at maternity care for women with twin pregnancies and their babies and found that the twin neonatal deaths was 5.34 in 1,000 live births, which is 0.5%. Twin stillbirths were 6.16 per 1,000, which is 0.6% pregnancies. Since the overall perinatal mortality for twins and multiples is 11.5 in 1,000, or a 1.1%, and the reported stats for singletons were 5.01 in 1,000, or 0.5%, this makes twins and multiples generally 2 times more likely to end in a perinatal mortality. Interestingly, this report, which was conducted through MBRRACE UK, which is Mothers and Babies Reducing Risk Through Audits and Confidential Inquiries Across the UK, which was supported by the Twins Trust when it was formerly known as the Twins and Multiple Births Association, otherwise known as TAMBA, it found there was a fall in stillbirth and neonatal deaths compared to previous years. The Twins Trust website has a page with a poster promoting their findings, but when one clicks on the link to the hyperlinked documents, it is only accessible to members or healthcare professionals. For the period of the Lucy Letby case, between baby A and baby Q, there was a total of 3,296 births at the Countess of Chester, a general hospital with very little in-house expertise in perinatology. It couldn't even deliver the most basic care to mothers and babies due to poor infrastructure and staffing. One should expect such a hospital would refer any complicated twin and multiple pregnancy for monitoring at a specialist hospital, especially if there is evidence or suspicion of an issue. Most stillbirths and neonatal deaths in twins and multiples, but for the incredibly few, occur in those pregnancies with known high-risk factors that can be detected prior to birth with good monitoring. Had the Countess of Chester had the usual number of uncomplicated and low-risk pregnancies, referring those with any signs of trouble, their number of perinatal losses in twins and multiples would have been at the conservative end of the national statistics and not over. We do not know the number of stillbirths or neonatal deaths of twins in total for that period at the Countess of Chester. Based on the audit statistics and the likelihood of pregnancies resulting in twins, one would expect at most 2 perinatal deaths of twins and multiples, not 4. Though even 2 would be questionable, as you would expect a referral to a better hospital and clinicians. A little understandable science. When we speak about twins, we must separate the difference between the types of twins and different types of twin pregnancies. Identical twins are from one fertilized egg, a zygote, and depending on when that egg splits, depends on the type of pregnancy. One egg can split to create 2 identical twins, and if one of those eggs splits again, it can become a triplet pregnancy. It can be complicated to a layperson, but there are identical twins or fraternal twins. In the case of identical or monozygote, MZ twins, mono meaning one and zygote meaning egg. If the egg splits early, this will result in dichorionic, DC, di meaning 2, and chorion, the fetal tissue that includes the placenta. These twins have their own chorion and placenta. If the egg splits later, they will be monochorionic. Mono meaning one and chorionic meaning the chorion and placenta, so they will share one placenta. These twins from one egg, zygote, will still be identical and share almost all of their DNA. If there are 2 eggs, this is called dizygote, a DZ, di meaning 2 and zygote meaning egg. They will always be dichorionic and have their own placenta, though sometimes their placenta may fuse, but they will not share any vascular connections. These twins will be as alike as any 2 regular siblings and can be different sexes. Every baby in utero has an amnion, and in rare cases, monochorionic twins share an amnion. When we write the types of twins and triplets, in the case we have 3 different types, but they were all diamniotic, di meaning 2 and amniotic meaning amnion. With many errors in the plethora of reports, some from experts, we do not have information on all of the twins' pregnancies, so we have gone through them discerning from what we know and what is more likely. Of the twins as recorded, there were 2 babies known as baby A and B from one very high risk dichorionic diamniotic pregnancy. Baby A sadly died. The mother was not booked at the Countess of Chester, and due to her diagnosis of antiphospholipid syndrome, she was booked under the care of 2 London hospitals. She also had gestational hypertension and cholestasis. One baby, known as baby Q, from a DCDA pregnancy, whose co-twin was ectopic and surgically removed. The mother had a post-surgical bleed at 26 weeks. There has been no record of where the mother had the surgery or was booked, but she gave birth 5 weeks after this bleed, at 31 weeks and 3 days, due to ruptured placenta at the Countess of Chester. Baby Q survived. Two babies known as E and F from one monochorionic diamniotic pregnancy. These babies develop twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, TTTS, which is one of two conditions known to affect these types of twins where there is an unequal sharing of blood due to connections within the placenta. Following a fairly normal MCDA pregnancy up to 27 weeks, the mother was admitted to Liverpool Women's NHS Foundation Trust, which going forward we will refer to simply as Liverpool Women's, but you may see written on documents as LWH or LWFT. With TTTS for monitoring to get to 30 weeks to be born. At 29.5 weeks, the mother was sent from Liverpool Women's Hospital, a tertiary specialist unit, to the Countess of Chester for urgent delivery. Baby E died and F survived. One baby, known as baby J, is known to be from an MCDA pregnancy. She lost her co-twin in utero due to TTTS. She had the surgery in a London hospital, following a long admission to Liverpool Women's, and then gave birth at the Countess of Chester at 32.2 weeks due to a rupture of membranes. Her mother's waters broke. J survived. When an MCDA twin loses their co-twin in utero, there is a 15% risk that one or both babies may die, and at least 1 in 4 survivors, 25% or more, may suffer from serious brain damage. There's also a very high chance, 60 to 70%, of being born prematurely. If one twin dies before 24 weeks of pregnancy, the other is more likely to die too. But if it survives, it may have less risk of brain damage. If one twin dies after 24 weeks, the surviving twin is more likely to live, but also more likely to suffer brain damage. There is one twin known as baby N in the indictment, that it is not known whether their co-twin passed away, is of an unknown pregnancy presentation, i.e. we cannot tell if they were MCDA or DCDA. However, this mother was a haemophilia carrier. They were born at 34.4 weeks when born and had selective intrauterine growth restriction, IUGR, which is sometimes called selective fetal growth restriction. This can happen in either type of twin pregnancy, but for different reasons. This baby was incredibly small for its gestational age. He survived. There are two babies known as L and M from one twin pregnancy. They were born on the 8th of April 2016. At the end of March, at around 30 weeks pregnant, their mother felt poorly and was admitted for 15 to 17 days. Their testimony was that there was a growth issue with baby L. The weights do not reflect a significant difference. Therefore, it is likely that the measurement that was low for gestational age was blood flow to the brain. This is called cerebroplacental ratio. It is most likely that they were monochorionic diamniotic MCDA twins and had either TTTS or twin anemia polycythemia sequence, otherwise known as TAPS. The reason we believe this is because there was a size discordance, which, while small, the smaller one developed something called oligohydramnios, which is where one baby has very little amniotic fluid surrounding them in utero, and the larger one was born plethoric, or red and full of blood, with raised hemoglobin. Both these babies survived, and the lasting issues being that the smaller one has speech and language difficulties, which is common. Then there is the triplet pregnancy, of which O and P are two of, with the third often referred to as baby R, a 1 in 100,000 pregnancy. They were born very unwell at 33.2. It was a monochorionic chorionic triamniotic pregnancy, which means all the babies shared placenta but had their own amnion. The mother was cared for by the Countess of Chester and Liverpool women to screen for TTTS. It is noted that towards the end of the period of the babies in the Letby case, the Countess of Chester was booking more high-risk patients rather than receiving babies booked at specialist hospitals and instead shared care. These babies sadly died, and the mother, suspecting incompetence, demanded a transfer to Liverpool Women's, and baby R survived. It is clear to us that this is something of a statistical anomaly, especially when those that didn't have a twin-related condition had incredibly rare comorbidities, which is a collection of clinical issues, in pregnancy that left them really unwell once they were born. These diseases can be seen under the good care and monitoring of a tertiary level centre hospital such as Liverpool Women's. There are, of course, other similar hospitals best able to care for such fragile twin and multiple pregnancies such as Birmingham Women's and Children's NHS Foundation Trust, the BWC, which we will refer to as Birmingham Women's, St Michael's, now part of the University Hospital Bristol and Western NHS Trust, the UHBW, and St George's London. The connections and networks. In a document called Antenatal Management of Multiple Pregnancy Guideline, written by a consultant in fetal and maternal medicine at Liverpool Women's issue to NICE on the 28th of March 2013 to be updated on March 2016, that we found via the National Institute for Healthcare Excellence, NICE, in which it refers to itself as a tertiary referral trust. They state all the ways a twin and multiple pregnancy must be cared for. It states, for example, that for higher order pregnancies, triplets, all scans will be undertaken in the fetal medicine unit, and the revisit schedule will be tailored to the particular pregnancy. Transvaginal scanning of the cervix should be carried out at 15 to 16 weeks, 20, 21 weeks, and 24 weeks gestation. It also clearly states the monitoring and referral protocol for a woman having any multiple pregnancy and best practice in the event of something serious showing in pregnancy, such as these babies, or when they co-twin dies. It might, therefore, shock you to learn that Liverpool Women's was then, as it is now, the tertiary level centre hospital local to the Countess of Chester with a specialist centre, a multiple pregnancy clinic, an MPC, and multiple pregnancy specialist, fetal medicine doctor, Dr. Surabhi Nanda, during 2015 and 2016. Some of these babies, at least 7 twins and multiples from 4 pregnancies, were booked at Liverpool Women's. 2 are reported to have TTTS, with one losing their co-twin and the other likely did. E&F's mother was admitted to Liverpool Women's for almost 3 weeks and was transferred to the Countess of Chester as there was an urgent need for them to be born 10 weeks early, as they were very dangerously unwell. There is also a singleton, known as Baby I, in the indictment that was born very premature at Liverpool Women's and transferred as a neonate that was incredibly small for gestational age and born at 27 weeks. Moreover, the first twins in the indictment A and B were booked at 2 London hospitals, but the mother became unwell when in the area, but had in the days of admission prior to birth and should have been transported to a specialist centre, but she was not. It is unknown where baby Q, the DCDA twin who lost their ectopic co-twin, was booked, or where surgery took place, but given the highly specialist nature of such invasive surgery, this could unlikely be at the Countess of Chester. In the clearest of terms, the question that must be answered is why were these babies moved from an expert hospital where they were seriously compromised? We now introduce some of the team at Liverpool Women's at the time. Dr. Surabhi Nanda, who completed her medical degree in 2000 and became a member of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists in 2009. Dr. Nanda led the North West Cheshire and Merseyside multiple pregnancy service there for 4 years, circa 2013 to 2017. This year, a pop star called Jessie Nelson underwent TTTS surgery reportedly performed by Dr. Nanda and the other clinical lead in 2015, Dr. Andrew Sharp. She and her partner have subsequently fundraised for the Twins Trust. This, as you will come to realise further, raises concerns. Dr. Andrew Sharp was another lead consultant at Liverpool Women's. It has been hard to find any helpful information about Andrew Sharp, but he was spending a lot of time during the summer of 2015, May onwards, promoting the new Liverpool Women's Hospital, the Harris Wellbeing Preterm Birth Centre, which was opened in 2015 following a £1 million donation in 2014 from the Lord and Lady of Peckham. They were also recipients of a Twins Trust, formerly TAMBA, and British Maternal and Fetal Medicine Society, BMFMS, research bursary in 2016. With Professor Asma Khalil of St George's University Hospital London NHS Trust, St George's. Incidentally, we can see that Liverpool Women's was performing TTTS surgery prior to 2015 and offered it in 2014 to a set of triplets. In 2014, this TTTS surgery was carried out successfully on another set of triplets at St George's Hospital London. Therefore, treatment should have been offered and given. Why was it not carried out? Why the one time it was the mother referred to a hospital not involved in this audit? Dr. Surabhi Nanda referred one of the mothers after a long period of monitoring for laser ablation to King's College Hospital in London. Why, with all the previously mentioned expert specialist centres en route, including the esteemed hospital Birmingham Women's involved in the audit? Birmingham Women's is a leading hospital, and the multiples specialist clinician called Professor Mark Kilby, who is researching pioneering, revolutionary treatment to reduce disabilities in neonatal twins. Professor Kilby has had huge amounts of involvement collaborating with other here named professionals in writing guidelines and carrying out research. He was involved in the construction of the clinical commissioning policy, management of twin-to-twin syndrome by fetoscopic laser ablation. Professor Kilby has worked extensively with the Twins Trust, and its maternity engagement project with Keith Reed was the CEO. Dr. Nanda is now a trustee. The aforementioned Professor Asma Khalil is the clinical lead and face of the Twins Trust and now holds a senior position at Liverpool Women's. The amount of information and guidance that we did not have at that time for managing twin pregnancies with complications could fit on a postage stamp. What motivated the actions that led to the specialist care they needed being downgraded or moved outside of networks available, rather than constant at Liverpool Women's or upgraded in good time to ensure they stood the best chance? When, if ever, will we discover the whole truth? And what is the whole truth from those making decisions during that time? Further examination of the professional network reveals a 2017 embarrassing paper called Antenatal Management of Multiple Pregnancies Within the UK, a survey of practice, co-authored by Joanna Gent. Sarabi Nanda, Andrew Sharp, and Asma Khalil. Embarrassing because of the deviation from obvious national guidance for the mothers of the twins and multiples in the Letby case. As overseen by those charged with their perinatal care, by, among others, those authoring this very paper. This paper followed a survey which would have been carried out retrospectively, looking at the few years prior to publication. The relevance of transparent data from institutions like Liverpool Women's is reflected, as said, by the information that some twins in the Letby indictment exhibited signs of TTTS and other twin and multiple pregnancy-related conditions and received antenatal care there. The question is, why were the Letby multiples not treated during pregnancy and after birth at Liverpool Women's? And why, when they were along with other hospitals participating in the audits, studies and networks sent and or born prematurely at the Countess of Chester without the same capability and infrastructure? This is why we must be interested in the obstetric history of the babies in the Letby case and unethical practices placing not only babies in utero at risk, but also the mothers, and by proxy, their families, caregivers, and other healthcare attendants with a chilling casualty that might make their value of other humans akin to heads of lettuce. Our investigation has closely examined the UK's twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, TTTS registry, established in 2015 with funding from the Twins Trust, formerly TAMBA. Its alleged purpose is to collect data on this serious condition affecting identical twin pregnancies, involving institutions like St George's Hospital and other fetal medicine centres. However, since then, the registry has expanded to include all twin and multiple pregnancies. Inquiries to the Twins Trust regarding this registry over several years were met with significant resistance, and the response that they do not hold the details and they no longer work with the current holder of the registry. They directed to said holder, Professor Asma Khalil, but as you can see from their website, they do work closely with her. Freedom of information requests were made formally, both privately and publicly, which were not responded to. Professor Khalil completed a postgraduate diploma in advanced obstetric ultrasound in 2007 and became a member of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists in 2008, completing her medical doctor residency in 2009. A research professor whose engagements in various maternity endeavours can be found on the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, Twin and Triplet Pregnancy Advisory Committee Interests Register, 2019, along with Professor Kilby, which includes, among other things, a declaration that she has been and lecture and organise regular educational courses related to multiple pregnancy, both nationally and internationally, since 2013. Professor Khalil has a master's in epidemiology. She has a private practice in Harley Street and the Great Portland Hospital, and holds a prominent position in fetal medicine, associated with the hospital previously mentioned, St George's University Hospital in London, and who is now the Director of Fetal Medicine at Liverpool Women's Hospital. Professor Khalil is the Vice President for Academia and Strategy at RCOG. She is Obstetric Lead at the National Maternity and Perinatal Audit, Treasurer of International Society of Experts in Ultrasound for Obstetrics and Gynecology, chairing the Twins and Multiple Births Association Maternity Engagement Project Steering Committee, a Department of Health funded quality improvement project covering 30 maternity hospitals. Over the years, Asma has received over 15 national and international awards. The latest was recognizing Female Obstetricians and Gynecologists Award, Female in Gynecologists and Obstetrics. She is also the co-founder of Gynecology and Obstetrics Foundation of Greece with Professor Simon Meagher, who is a consultant sonologist at Mercy Hospital for Women, Melbourne. A patient advocate, Stephanie Ernest, endorses and collaborates with Professor Khalil to provide information for this purpose. Mrs. Ernest's website describes herself as a digital raconteuse, content artisan, writer, and speaker. She further identifies as a published author, research participant, as a parent, as a patient, as a co-author. She also has a side hobby, working with the European Standards or Care for Newborn Health as a voice for multiple birth parents and the founder of the TAPS Support and Vice Chair of International Council of Multiple Birth Organization. Professor Khalil leads the steering committee with 2 other members for the TTTS registry with Stephanie Ernest and Dua Mohammed, a clinical research fellow at St. George's Hospital, which is now reportedly managed via MedSciNet and today involves 40 participating hospitals. She is also the leadership team of the International Society of Twin Studies. The ISTS, in turn, is associated with ICOMBO, International Council of Multiple Birth Organization, whose vice chair, Stephanie Ernest. This construction of roles, where a relatively small group of individuals are key players across clinical leadership, research funding bodies, international societies, and the very registries collecting data, can understandably appear to the public as a system of self-appointing experts, the likes of which the Letby case has been marred by and continues to be at the behest of. When raising concerns about such intricate networks and the transparency of twin studies, there have been allegations of believing in a conspiracy. To be clear, we are not conspiracy theorists. This work is rooted in thorough cross-referencing of available data. However, the persistent difficulty in obtaining the straightforward answers and the dismissal of legitimate inquiries fuel our passion for uncovering the truth, and we believe this is in the public interest. This opacity inevitably leads to questions about whether clinicians and researchers' own interest, be they reputational, related to securing further research grants, or institutional standing, might even inadvertently influence decisions about data sharing or the promotion of certain research methodologies over others, and worse still, prevent the course of public justice. A case in point is ICOMBO, which, as a team of people who claim to have met as parents at an ISTS Congress and decided to create a club. These predominantly Australian women, many of whom work in or are involved in research and twin studies, took it upon itself to draft a universal Declaration of Rights and Needs of Twins and Higher Order Multiples, which mentions twin studies. They have invited every twin and multiple organisations from across the globe to join this club, with a concession to also join the ISTS. While advocating for rights is commendable and inviting diversity, when the same individuals advocating and organising are also deeply embedded in the research structures they are commenting on, The potential for conflicts of interest becomes a legitimate area for public scrutiny. This is why the relevance of history of twin studies and difficulties in obtaining information is relevant and will answer questions as to the difficulties in obtaining information. The extreme unwellness of the infants in the Letby case and the apparent resistance to care for them could be answered by the previously mentioned national audit and the documented interest in studies around conservative management of conditions like stage 1 TTTS, as noted in a 2016 paper by Khalil et al., which referred to an ongoing trial comparing immediate laser surgery versus conservative management, raises profound questions. Clearly, the infants who had TTTS in the indictment were beyond stage 1. It is by all accounts a progressive and fast evolving condition. If conservative management poses a greater risk than active treatment, then the ethics of such trials and the potential impact on outcomes for babies like those in the Letby case demand full, unbiased investigation. Here in Britain, we rely on ethical codes like the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki, alongside national frameworks such as the Research Governance Framework for Health and Social Care, the Medicines for Human Use Clinical Trials Regulations 2004, the Mental Capacity Act 2005, and the Human Tissue Act 2004. In the UK, the legal framework surrounding harm and death to an unborn fetus is primarily anchored by the Born Alive rule, which dictates that a fetus is generally not recognised as a separate legal person until it is born alive and demonstrates independent existence. Consequently, if an unborn baby dies in the womb, typical homicide charges like murder or manslaughter usually do not apply directly to the fetus. However, the Infant Life Preservation Act 1929 created the offence of child destruction, criminalising the intentional killing of a viable fetus, presumed to be from 24 weeks gestation. For a third party to be convicted of child destruction, the prosecution must prove a specific intent to destroy the life of the fetus. It is crucial to note that until recently, a pregnant woman could not be charged with child destruction or other offences for actions leading to the loss of their own fetus. Though policy is currently being changed, more commonly in legal practice, if an assault on a pregnant woman by a third party leads to the loss or harm of the fetus, this is treated as a significant aggravating factor during sentencing for the offences committed against the mother. Legal case studies. Nicola Packer, 45, who during lockdown was prescribed medication but has since been accused of believing she was more than 10 weeks pregnant. She was recently tried and cleared. Carla Foster, a mother of 3, was jailed for more than 2 years for inducing an abortion after the legal limit. The case of Kevin Wilson resulted in a conviction for child destruction and grievous bodily harm with intent following an attack on his pregnant partner that led to a stillbirth. David Gallagher was jailed for a racially aggravated assault that caused his victim to miscarry twins, with the fetal loss being a key aggravating factor in his sentence. Similarly, the case of Harif Pearson, who orchestrated an attack on his pregnant girlfriend, intending to induce a miscarriage, though the baby survived, demonstrates the legal stance against attempts to cause fetal death through violence. There are also pre-birth child protection case conferences if they fear they may be a threat to future life. We mention these not to get political, but to demonstrate how the UK courts run amok and are wildly inconsistent when there is someone to blame or not to blame for the death of an unborn baby or the future of a human life. We argue that when you look back over the obstetric history of these infants, there were potential factors placing them at significant risk, and their families wanted them. How this affects maternity and justice internationally. Broadly, EU member states tend to follow similar legal approaches to the UK, prioritising maternal autonomy and often treating harm to a fetus as an aggravating factor in crimes against the pregnant woman, with specific criminal laws concerning fetal harm remaining under national jurisdiction. These legal mechanisms collectively show that while a fetus may lack full legal personhood before birth, the law offers several routes to penalise third-party actions causing fetal death or significant harm. In a nutshell, there is a strong case when reflecting back that a hypothetical risk should be enough to prevent studies that place anyone at risk, including those in close proximity to the study, such as siblings, family members, and clinicians. A lack of transparency here could obscure whether clinical decisions and research pathways truly prioritised immediate best outcomes or were influenced by other interests. If we have laws, as mentioned in this article, why is there no consideration into the accountability of the researchers and clinicians? Moreover, policies, if in fact, as has been previously suggested with shortfalls in beds in the Letby case, to move babies could bias the trials and the statistical outcomes of the trials that influences national and international guidance and clinical treatments. What is clear is that moving such unwell pregnant mothers of twins was a decision made that we believe that Lucy Letby has paid the price for. It is important to note that the UK has one of the worst maternity outcomes in Europe. Should the UK have such influence? When parents, legal reps, and advocates seek comprehensive information, such as through Freedom of Information requests for maternity statistics, or report facing denials citing GDPR, with the twin aspect making families identifiable, this contributes to our perception of data being withheld. As this case labours on at a snail's pace, while people meet and chit-chat over dinner, creating fractions and hypotheses that trump another with an equal minimal likelihood, we can't help but think of Letby tucking into a meal for one with plastic cutlery. We also feel that the families deserve a thorough investigation into the clinical management decisions at the level of influence we have shared here. The historical timeline for truth is a stark reminder. Nuboa's study took 30 to 57 years for varying degrees of public awareness. Money's Reimer case, 30 years. Hijiankwai, 6 years on. More than 90% data, still secret despite a criminal conviction. The tragic loss of life through suicide in the aftermath of the Nuboa and Money studies highlights the profound human cost of such secretive and ethically compromised research. This detailed compilation is presented to bring awareness to the critical need for demonstrable transparency and to give you context as to why the information has been and is so hard to obtain. The question for the British public, the world, and for those whose freedom may depend on such clarity is obvious. Will we be forced to wait similar decades for answers, given the devastating, life-altering consequences seen in past unethical research, including the loss of lives through suicide and with a woman's freedom currently hanging in the balance? Our current UK laws and oversight mechanisms truly sufficient to prevent hidden harm, to challenge potential self-protection within clinical and research circles, and to ensure that the pursuit of truth is not indefinitely obstructed, potentially risking further lives or perpetuating miscarriages of justice? Mechanisms like a summons or warrants or an inquiry is needed with the terms of reference regarding equity of admissions to the Countess of Chester to ensure a legal duty to answer our questions.
6 months.
Disclaimer. The work I am undertaking with Professor Richard Gill is on a pro bono basis. This is in keeping with all the work I have done with families who have experienced the loss of a baby, which has been done without charging. If you would like to support my ongoing efforts and help subsidise my work, you are welcome to make a donation to my PayPal account. Your contribution will help me continue to offer this support to families and continue my work with Professor Gill. Until next time.